based on something called the Mercator projection, a method that tries to flatten the round Earth into a 2D surface, and in doing so it totally distorts the actual size of continents. For example, Greenland and Africa look similar in size on most maps, but in reality, Africa is 14 times larger than Greenland. In fact, Greenland is even smaller than just one African country, DR Congo. Now let's talk about Russia. On maps, it looks massive, almost larger than Africa. But here's the truth. You could fit Russia inside Africa, twice. And that's not all. The US, China, India, Japan, and all of Europe, they can all fit inside Africa at the same time.
In
the heart of KwaZulu-Natal, a province often challenged by crime and unrest, one man's unwavering commitment to justice has made him a beacon of hope. This is the story of Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Lucky Mkhwanazi, a journey of resilience, integrity, and leadership. Born in Edendale, Pietermaritzburg,
the president of South Africa. This guy is bringing criminals to book. Imagine, he has even opened a case against a whole police minister. South Africa, we can do better. Let us unite and protect General Mkhwanazi. This guy needs our protection. Let us protect him.
That is being plotted in South Africa somewhere. And these allegations by the presidency that have just come out, these explosive allegations, definitely are aimed at Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi and what he has just told us over the weekend last week. And I will tell you all about it. Well, the minister in the presidency, that is Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, recently, when she was briefing the media, she told South Africans that there is a coup plot that is being orchestrated somewhere in some parts of South Africa. However, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni did not tell us which part or which branch of the state apparatus is currently plotting a coup against the current government in South Africa. However, normally, coups all over the world are normally or usually done by the military. It's because the military has got the manpower, they've got the structures. They're a government on their own. Apart from having enough bullets and bombs to take over government, they also have it in their constitution that they can take over government if the civilian structures of government are disabled or not able to do their work. So it is normally expected that a military can orchestrate a coup in a country. So according to the presidency, or what Khumbudzo Ntshavheni has just told the nation, which part of our defense force could be currently plotting a plot against the South African government of the GNU, which involves the ANC, the Democratic Alliance, and many other political parties. Is Khumbudzo Ntshavheni suggesting that our general, the leader of the defense force in South Africa currently, that is General Ruzani, is he plotting a coup against the South African government? I don't think so. Or is it maybe Angie Motshekga? Maybe Angie Motshekga is currently plotting a coup against the government because she's the Minister of Defense. Well, she has a look about her. Maybe Khumbudzo Ntshavheni is right. She could be the one plotting a coup against the government of South Africa. Well, that's obviously a no. It's obviously a false. And Motshekga does not have the muscle in her, not even the audacity to even think of taking over government. And the generals would just definitely not listen to her. Well, it's definitely not our defense force that's planning to take over government. So where are these allegations by the state coming from? Where is the government taking this intelligence that says that there is a coup that's about to be orchestrated in South Africa? But there's a thing that we should pay attention to here, and that thing is the timing. The timing of this is just coming right at the heels of what Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has just told us. The explosive bombshells that Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has just brought into the fray in South Africa and told us that our very own government is involved with the criminals and doing all sorts of nefarious things in the country, which led to the Minister of Police being sacked or sent away on a holiday. Now, I want us to watch this clip by Paul O'Sullivan. Recently, just after Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi gave us the news about the minister and his friends orchestrating crime in South Africa, Paul O'Sullivan came forward and was speaking to Newsroom Africa, and he did not even speak about the allegations that Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi put forward or the report, the explosive report that we had, but rather he was speaking about Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi and how he was dressed and how that symbolized a coup. And it seemed to be something that was echoed by those linked to the criminals that Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi actually pointed out. Let's listen.
And I think the investigation needs to discover who was behind his press conference today. And it also needs to discover why he was dressed in combat uniform, why was he wearing task force uniform, and why was he having task force members on both sides of him. It's almost like he's challenging who? The government? He's challenging the police? Who is he challenging? And he's setting out all these people around him. If you have a look at the pictures, it's very, very clear. He's surrounded by people with R5 weapons, and they're all wearing masks, so we can't see who they are.
Okay, Paul, I must come in there.
It looks dangerously suspicious, and it looks dangerously like he's threatening a coup.
Well, Paul O'Sullivan says that, well, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi was not dressed nicely. Maybe he should have worn a suit because what he is wearing is military fatigue and it symbolizes a coup. He was very much angry and he says Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi should be demoted and should be tried for dressing like that and looking like he's about to orchestrate a coup. And this was also echoed by another General Sibiya. When Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi gave us the news about the criminals in our government, General Sibiya came out to the news defending and also spoke of something similar that Paul O'Sullivan is speaking about. He said the way Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi is standing there speaking, wearing that fatigue, looking like he's about to take over a government. And Paul O'Sullivan, the way he speaks, you can't help but just understand something, that it seems he was very close to Minister Senzo Mchunu. He was speaking about sending letters to Minister Senzo Mchunu and the government of South Africa to suspend General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Now, in this whole thing, one cannot help but begin to put together the dots here. Why is it that our government suddenly, out of the blue, comes to tell us about a coup that's coming in South Africa? Why didn't they tell us about this before? Why is it that these allegations of a coup are just coming right at the heels of what we have heard from Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi?
Are you not worried about the situation out here today, General?
What situation, sir?
The gathering of so many people and the fact that you are here as the police, only coming out today and not having been seen earlier in the week.
You haven't seen us earlier in the week. We've been here.
Okay.
The mere fact that you haven't seen us on TV, it doesn't mean you're not here.
Okay, I'll take that. But then, General...
Look, we are dealing with an unplanned thing, a crowd management situation. The moods of the people is different. You know, it's not a normal crowd management situation we're dealing with. So how we respond, how we react as the police, we need to be very careful. We don't want to draw attention away from what this is about. This is about the Constitutional Court. It's not about this gathering that's happening. But because people are feeling the manner they are feeling, they want to express whatever they want to express, and they forcefully want to be confrontational with the police. The police has to apply their operational situational awareness in order to deal with the situation. So if we go hard on them, it's going to turn away the whole attention of the court into the police. So it is important of how we manage the situation. Yes, there are disaster management regulations that you need to enforce. But as much as the media is crowded, is so many in this place to cover the story, So are the locals that are moving around and many other people that might be coming from different places. This is an open area. They can come in from all different directions. It becomes difficult for us to control people.
There's a lot of buzz around General Mkhwanazi and the potential for instability in South Africa. But let's be clear, there's no solid evidence of a coup. Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni has pointed out that while the government is aware of risks, they're actively monitoring the situation. Mkhwanazi's focus seems to be on exposing corruption within law enforcement, particularly targeting Police Minister Senzo Mchunu for allegedly shutting down investigations into political killings. This is a critical moment for South Africa's justice system, and while many admire Mkhwanazi's bravery, we must be cautious about leaning on strong men instead of reinforcing our democratic institutions. The stakes are high, and it's crucial to stay informed through credible sources as this story unfolds.
How does the corruption within South Africa, through law enforcement and other agencies, facilitate this big drug problem that we have currently? So if you're looking back, how do you think it's gotten to the scale that it is now? And how is it structured, if you know much about that?
When you're talking about drugs and law enforcement agencies, there's so many police officers involved, politicians. We've seen the wife of an intelligence minister who was arrested, for pushing drugs between Brazil and South Africa. And I also blame the people of this country because they are the ones who are voting this ANC. The ANC, it's a criminal organization. We romanticized the ANC in the 80s, the 90s. We thought that these guys are our liberators. We had people like Chief Mangosuthu, Lucas Mangope Chief. They were always arguing with the ANC, fighting the ANC, because they knew each other, because they went to school together, they grew up together. We didn't know them. When I was born, Mandela was already in jail. They said, not these guys. But these guys, they were selling drugs in exile. They were using drug money to finance the struggle. They were not interested in liberating this country. You look at all other countries where there's been an armed struggle, guerrilla warfare, not the ANC. Tell me one single incident where you had MK soldiers fighting the army of South Africa during apartheid. None. They will send one guy with a go hit there, a wimpy, or plant bombs there to create that impression that they were fighting and loot donor money, go ask for money. So these guys, they were pushing drugs. These are guys who were raping their own comrades, their own female comrades. They were raping other men. That's why even today, if you want a job, it's like, what can you give? Every female, almost all of them that are employed in top positions, they've been passed around. This one's got a child with this one has dated this one was Zuma's this, side chick, and all of them. That's why Robert Mugabe had the audacity to tell Lindiwe Zulu that she's a street woman. And Lindiwe Zulu could do nothing about that. Because Robert Mugabe knew, what they were doing that side, and he's got the intelligence. I mean, this was the most educated president in the world. And the intelligence here says Zimbabwe is very strong. It beats South Africa 10 times. So these guys, they were criminals from the beginning, and they never stopped selling drugs when they came here. Some of them, they were driving expensive cars in exile in Zambia. You've got the commander of MK, Joe Mudise. Allegedly, he was sending comrades to come by him, Saxon and Brentwood in Hook Street, drinking champagnes from Oliver Tambo. They were in London. We are fighting British Empire. They're in London under Margaret Thatcher, sipping champagne with white prostitutes, Botabombeki. And when they come here, you expect anything different. These are drug dealers. They're always working hand in hand. The normal world, the so-called normal world and the underworld, they work together. Because there's bribery monies that are being used, monies that you cannot trace. What better mode, to get those monies to move if you're not using drugs? And drugs are selling every day. There are companies and shops in Sentin, boutiques selling expensive clothes. Nobody's buying there. There is no customer. 10 years later, the shop is still standing. What are they selling? Some of them, it's a front.
How it relates to some of the wokeism and hyper-racialization that we now have on our shores.
Yeah, well, we're very grateful about the fact that the world is starting to take note, and also for what you've been doing to talk about South Africa. I was just telling someone back in 2012 was the first time I went to America to speak to people about South Africa, and it was at a UN event, and someone called me to the side and said, listen, don't do this, because we want to believe South Africa is this great miracle story, and it's this poster child of the United Nations, so we don't want to be talking about what's going wrong in South Africa. And I'm very happy that now it's gotten to the point where, especially through people like you and other podcasts and people like President Trump, of course, we're now at the point where you cannot ignore it. But it is really bad. And recently, polarization has worsened, especially with this continued chanting of kill the Boer, kill the farmer, with the South African government now just recently signing a new law to empower the state to confiscate private property without compensation, and then denying that they are doing it. So they go to America and they deny doing it, and then they go to South Africa and they say, we will not stop doing this. And so we have the farm attacks, we have the threats to property rights, we have the hate speech, and then an overarching problem in South Africa is just government collapse. We have a very serious problem with the government not able to fulfill its most basic duties.
Right, so separate from some of the terrible things that you just mentioned, and there are, I think it's 141 race-based anti-white laws in your country, but separate from all of that, you seem to also have a complete government incompetence problem that I was discussing with Rob, as it pertains to building infrastructure and proper policing and all of these things. But I'm guessing those things kind of go hand in hand.
Yes. So the ANC, that's the ruling party in South Africa, they still say we're not a political party, we're a liberation movement, and we are committed to revolution. So their ideology only knows one thing, which is destruction. So there's something that is an enemy, that is identified as the enemy or the work of the enemy, and we need to destroy that. And the assumption is once we are finished with the destruction, then somehow a phoenix will rise from the ashes. But the phoenix never comes.
I mean, it's what's happening with our progressives in the United States. It's the same thing.
Yes, and it's interesting the you could say the overlap between what's happening in South Africa and what's happening in the States, because a lot of the ideology, this critical race theory ideology, has come to South Africa, and now these leftists in South Africa are using people like Robin DiAngelo and all these Americans who are so much on the left, trying to implement their ideas in South Africa. And a lot of what's happening in South Africa, like the targeting of the statues, burning down of heritage sites and so forth, has sort of spread to America from South Africa. So there's a overlap that isn't good.
So when you saw your president, I should say, when you saw your president come to the Oval Office and Donald Trump puts the TV right in front of him and plays the videos and then quite literally pulls out the paper and starts reading the headlines.
Yep.
This must have been quite a relief, or were you amazed? Were you saying, my God, it's finally a moment is finally here?
Yeah, I think it's both. A lot of people are really grateful for the fact that no one can ignore this anymore because of the fact that it was played in the White House during a press conference. But what surprised me, or I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, but what is astonishing is just how unprepared the South African delegation was for that meeting. They came in and they were completely shocked when this footage was shown. They didn't know how to respond.
Even the president beforehand, these big smiles, it was as if he had no idea what was about to happen. Yes. And I guess that is the truth.
And he made a joke. He said, if I had a plane to give you, I would give you a plane. And it's really crazy. But and then he denies it during the meeting. He says, no, this is not our policy. And then he goes back home to South Africa and he says that there's nothing wrong with chanting kill the Boer. Our courts will protect you if you chant it, and we're going to expropriate private property. So he goes to the White House, he denies it, and then he flies back to South Africa and he acknowledges that this is their program.
So what do you want to happen right now? So people are focusing on South Africa in a different way. what do you want to happen? I mean, I assume you believe the change has to come from within your country. You don't want it coming from without, even though the PR campaign is probably helpful.
Yes. So what needs to happen is we need to rethink the political system in South Africa, because I think it's important to understand that the crises that we are talking about are symptoms of a deeper rooted problem. And South Africa is much more diverse than Europe. It's almost as big as Europe. It's very big, it's very diverse, but we have this very strong, in quotation marks, central government trying to rule over everyone with and they call it themselves, a race nationalist socialist project. That's how they define their own ideology. And so the only sustainable solution could be to rethink the political system, to decentralize the political system, and to give the various communities that are in South Africa higher levels of self-governance. That's the only way forward for the peoples of South Africa.
And are you hopeful at this moment?
We are hopeful, we're optimistic. We are used to difficult times in South Africa. And we've, as the Afrikaner people, we've had many existential crises over the years and over the decades, and this is one. But we've overcome some in the past as well. So we are hopeful, we remain hopeful.
What if I told you that a new move by the United States government could change South Africa's future forever? A bill that has suddenly brought tension between Washington and Pretoria. A sanctions bill that many say is not only aggressive, but also deeply political and full of deeper intentions. As the world watches in silence, the United States has taken a sharp turn, and South Africa finds itself in the crosshairs of a global power struggle. But why now? What does this bill really mean? And what is the truth behind this sudden attack on one of Africa's largest and most influential nations? This is not just about politics. This is about global power, international relations, hidden agendas, and a rising fear that South Africa may be entering one of the most dangerous diplomatic periods in recent history. To fully understand what is going on today, we need to go back a bit in time. South Africa and the United States have had a complicated relationship for decades. During apartheid, America at first supported the South African government, but over time it began to criticize it heavily. After apartheid ended in the 1990s, the relationship became more friendly, based on trade and mutual interests. Over the years, the US saw South Africa as a key partner on the African continent. Both countries worked together on things like health programs, regional security, and economic growth. However, cracks started to show. South Africa's position on global issues often leaned away from Western powers and toward new allies, particularly China and Russia. This shift made many in Washington nervous. Recently, South Africa's ties with Russia have drawn particular attention. The country has refused to strongly condemn Russia's actions in Ukraine. It has also hosted joint military exercises with Russian and Chinese forces, a move that deeply upset the United States. These actions are seen by many American lawmakers as signs that South Africa is drifting away from Western influence. This has led to the recent US bill that threatens to impose sanctions on South Africa, claiming that the country is too friendly with Russia and is helping to weaken global peace efforts. But is that the real reason behind the bill? The bill, introduced by members of the US Congress, argues that South Africa's growing relationship with Russia poses a national security threat to the United States. It claims that by supporting Russia, South Africa is helping an enemy. The bill calls for an investigation into South Africa's activities, its financial ties, and its arms dealings. If enough evidence is found, the bill could result in sanctions on South African businesses, government officials, and possibly even trade restrictions. For many in South Africa, this feels like a betrayal. They argue that the United States is punishing them for simply having an independent foreign policy. South Africa has said repeatedly that it does not support war, but also refuses to be pressured into taking sides. It says it wants to remain neutral and focus on dialogue and peace. However, this neutral stance is not what the US wants to hear right now. Many experts believe the bill is less about South Africa and more about sending a message to other countries. As the world shifts toward a more multipolar structure, with China, Russia, India, and other powers rising, the United States is trying to protect its influence. Countries like South Africa, which are part of Brics, are seen as playing a key role in this shift. Brics is an alliance made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It was created to challenge Western control of global economics. The US sees this group, especially with Russia and China inside it, as a threat. So when South Africa chooses to stand by Brics members and hold joint activities with them, it makes Washington very uncomfortable. Many believe the sanctions bill is a warning, not just to South Africa, but to all Brics members. South African leaders have responded strongly. President Cyril Ramaphosa and others have said that they will not be bullied. They argue that South Africa has every right to decide who it wants to do business with and how it wants to manage its foreign relations. They say that being pressured by the United States only proves how unfair the global system has become. Some leaders even say that this is just another form of modern colonialism, where powerful countries try to control weaker ones through economic threats. On the streets, the reactions are mixed. Some South Africans are worried that this could hurt the economy, increase unemployment, and lead to more instability. Others feel proud that their government is standing its ground and not giving in to pressure from big powers. There are also voices within the United States who are critical of the bill. Some lawmakers and analysts believe that the sanctions will backfire. They argue that instead of weakening ties with Russia, it may push South Africa even closer to Russia and China. They believe that the bill shows a lack of understanding of Africa's changing role in global politics. For decades, African countries were expected to follow Western rules. But now, countries like South Africa want to build their own path. And instead of respecting that, the US is reacting with threats. This, they say, is not how strong partnerships are built. So what does the future hold? If the bill moves forward and sanctions are imposed, South Africa could face serious economic consequences. Trade with the US might drop. Investment from American companies could slow down. This would hurt local businesses and possibly lead to job losses. On the other hand, it could also push South Africa to deepen ties with China, Russia, and other Brics nations. There is already talk of shifting away from the US dollar in trade, which could weaken America's grip on global finance. Some even say this moment could mark the beginning of a major shift in world politics. A shift where countries no longer fear being punished by the West, and instead start forming stronger alliances among themselves. There is still time for dialogue. Many hope that cooler heads will prevail. That the US will rethink its approach, and that South Africa will find a way to balance its international friendships. What's clear is that this situation is about much more than one bill. It's about how global power is changing. It's about who gets to lead, who gets to speak, and who gets to decide. For South Africa, this may be one of the most defining moments of its foreign policy in years. The choices it makes now could affect its economy, its people, and its place in the world for a long time to come. As we continue to watch this story unfold, it's important to stay informed and ask the tough questions. Is this really about peace and security, or is it about control? Is South Africa being targeted for doing something wrong, or simply for standing on its own? And if sanctions become a tool of punishment against countries that choose independence, what does that say about the future of global democracy? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Is the US right to pressure South Africa? Or is this a dangerous move that could backfire badly? Don't forget to like this video if you found it helpful or eye-opening. And make sure to subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into global events that really matter. Hit the bell so you never miss a story that could shape the world.
The cabal's plan to seize South Africa's minerals and gold is a stark reminder of how powerful interests exploit nations for their resources. This isn't just a local issue, it's a global pattern. Countries around the world have fallen victim to similar schemes, often due to complacency and a lack of awareness. We must recognize our role in this. By allowing these actions to continue, we become complicit. It's time to wake up, educate ourselves, and take a stand against these injustices. Our resources belong to us, and we need to protect them fiercely. What are your thoughts on this?
Cape Town, where we've been waiting for a vote in the National Assembly or discussion on the potential or the possibility of establishing an ad hoc committee to look into allegations. Bring up those pictures, please, of instituting an ad hoc committee or establishing one to look into allegations of corruption and other wrongdoing in the law or enforcement space, including the SAPS. Let's listen.
Of the judiciary. Speaker, the DA commends the committee for recognizing that Parliament cannot abdicate its constitutional responsibility. Section 55 of the Constitution is very clear. The National Assembly must hold the executive to account, even in the face of parallel investigations. We welcome the urgency with which this House has resolved to independently oversee the political and institutional dimensions of this crisis. We particularly note the importance of the investigating committee being empowered to act decisively, transparently, and within a fixed time frame. Its work must complement, not duplicate, the Presidential Commission of Inquiry. But where necessary, Parliament must go further, especially where the executive has already demonstrated its inability or unwillingness to police itself. Honourable House Chair, while we note the President's decision to replace the Honourable Nkunu as Minister of Police and initiate a judicial inquiry, the DA remains deeply concerned by the extent of the alleged rot. SAPS's Crime Intelligence Division, the JMPD, Correctional Services, prosecutors, and even judicial officers have been unfortunately implicated. If this is true, these revelations suggest a mafia state within the state, where the lines between law enforcement and organized crime have eroded and collapsed. We call on this investigation to also interrogate the legality of the moratorium placed on the crime intelligence appointments, the political manipulation of procurement processes, including the 360 million Medicare 24 contract, the suspicious reassignment of dockets and arrests that appear designed to derail justice. We also welcome the public prosecutor's investigation into whether Honourable Nkunu misled Parliament, which is a serious breach of executive ethics if proven. Speaker, let us not forget, this crisis was not born in a vacuum. It is the product of years of cadre deployment, lack of vetting within the police, political interference, and a culture of impunity. The time for selective accountability is over. The DA therefore supports the report's recommendations and calls for the immediate commencement of the parliamentary investigation, public access to regular interim reports on the Commission of Inquiry, whistleblower protection not only for Lieutenant General Makhonazi, but all others that may come forward in this investigation, and the urgent strengthening of parliamentary oversight over the SAPS, IDAC, and related institutions. The truth will and must come out, and if that truth is damning, as it seems to be, then prosecutions must surely follow. I thank you.
Thank you. The MKP.
Thank you very much, House Chair. This is the report we intended to support, not the other one. So people must not be dramatic. We all commit mistakes. We are human beings. Honorable members, today we want to start our submission by quoting this fundamental principle of the rule of law. Open quote. The absolute supremacy and predominance of the law as opposed to the influence of arbitrary power, it excludes the existence of arbitrariness and prerogative or even wider discretionary authority on the part of the government. The people are ruled by the law and by the law alone. A man may be punished for a breach of law but he can be punished for nothing else, close quote. Honorable members, as we rise to support the establishment of the ad hoc committee, it is in favor of this legal principle that as the MK party we hereby salute Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi for taking head-on the perceived untouchables on the 6th of July 2025 by exposing criminal syndicates to which our criminal justice system has been hell-bent uninterrupted for a protracted period of time. By his fearlessness, he extricated many South Africans who are scared to expose shenanigans to which state institutions like the NPA, judiciary, the police department have been subjected for decades by the former liberation movement. Our support for the establishment of the ad hoc committee is not informed by an irrational appetite of supporting things which are not worth supporting, like other parties do more often than not. It is rather consciously informed by an intervention Parliament is legally expected to do under the present circumstances in terms of Section 55 and Section 56 of the South African Constitution. Our support for this is informed by how the doctrine of separation of powers defines the role of Parliament in the context of our constitutional democracy. Our support for this is inspired by the words of Amilcar Cabral when he said, open quote, "Tell no lies, claim no easy victories," close quotes. Hence our clarion call that Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi must appear before the ad hoc committee in Parliament and expose all the police officers, prosecutors, judges, members of Parliament, and all officials in the Department of Police who are in cahoots with criminals. An allegation by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi against judges justifies our valid call for a lifestyle.
The quantum financial system, or QFS, has sparked a lot of curiosity, especially regarding its ties to Brics. Imagine a new financial architecture that challenges traditional Western systems. Brics nations are already exploring alternatives, like a new reserve currency or innovative payment methods. Some theorize that QFS could be a blockchain-based or quantum-resistant system, potentially aligning with these initiatives. However, it's crucial to note that there's no solid evidence linking QFS directly to Brics. To truly grasp this relationship, we need more clarity on QFS and how it might fit into the evolving global financial landscape.
Sometimes unfairly judged, but always powerful in spirit. This is a country that has survived struggle, danced through pain, and risen with pride. Whether you were born here or dream of visiting, one thing is certain. South Africa is not just a country, it's a whole experience. In this video, I'll break down why South Africa is a good country. Not perfect, but proud. Not rich in everyone's pocket, but rich in culture, diversity, history, and soul. Let's take a journey through Mzansi. First, let's talk about beauty. South Africa is easily one of the most naturally beautiful countries on earth. We've got Table Mountain watching over Cape Town like a guardian, golden beaches in Durban, snow in the Drakensberg, and the red dunes of the Kalahari. Want a safari? You don't need to leave the country. Kruger National Park is home to the Big Five: lions, leopards, rhinos, elephants, and buffalo. And the best part? You can go from beaches to mountains to deserts all in 1 week.
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up all the way going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start, after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to hear a very frightening speech. This speech is an explanation of the plans now being laid to throw the United States into a third world war. It was made a short time ago before a large group in the congressional room of the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C. Both the speech and the question and answer period later so electrified the audience that a group of patriots has transferred it to 2 long-playing records which you may buy to play for friends, clubs, and your church groups in your community. The speaker is Mr. Benjamin Friedman, noted authority on Zionism and all of its schemes. Mr. Friedman is a former Jew, and I mean a former Jew. He has fought the communist world conspiracy tooth and nail and stands today as a leading American patriot. We now take you to the speaker's platform to present Benjamin Friedman.
What I intend to tell you tonight is something that you have never been able to learn from any other source. And what I tell you now concerns not only you, but your children and the survival of this country and Christianity. I'm not here just to dish up a few facts to send up your blood pressure, but I'm here to tell you things that will help you preserve what you consider the most sacred thing in the world, the liberty and the freedom and the right to live as Christians, where you have a little dignity and a little right to pursue the things that your conscience tells you are the right thing as Christians. Now, first of all, I'd like to tell you that on August 25th, 1960, that was shortly before election, Senator Kennedy, who is now the President of the United States, went to New York and delivered an address to the Zionist Organization of America. In that address, to reduce it to its briefest form, he stated that he would use the armed forces of the United States to preserve the existence of the regime set up in Palestine by the Zionists, who are now in occupation of that area. In other words, Christian boys are going to be yanked out of their homes, away from their families, and sent abroad to fight in Palestine against the Christian and Muslim Arabs who merely want to return to their homes. And these Christian boys are going to be asked to shoot to kill these innocent people who only want to follow out 15 resolutions passed by United Nations in the last 12 years, calling upon the Zionists to allow these people to return to their homes. Now, when the United States troops appear in the Middle East to fight with the Zionists as their allies to prevent the return of these people who were evicted from their homes in the 1948 armed insurrection by the Zionists who were transplanted there from Eastern Europe, when that happens, the United States will trigger World War III. You say, when will that take place? The answer is, as soon as the difficulties between France and Algeria have been settled, that will take place. As soon as France and Algeria have settled their difficulties and the Arab world or the Muslim world have no more war on their hands with France, they are going to move these people back into their homes. And when they do that, and President Kennedy sends your sons to fight over there to help the crooks hold on to what they stole from innocent men, women, and children, we will trigger World War III. And when that starts, you can be sure we cannot emerge from that war a victor. We are going to lose that war because there is not one nation in the world that will let one of their sons fight with us for such a cause. I know and speak to these ambassadors in Washington and at United Nations, and of the 99 nations there, I've consulted with maybe 70 of them, and when we go to war in Palestine to help the thieves retain possession of what they have stolen from these innocent people, we're not going to have a man there to fight with us as our allies. And who will these people have supporting them, you ask? Well, 4 days after President Kennedy, or he was then Senator Kennedy, made that statement, on August 28, 1960, the Arab nations called a meeting in Lebanon, and there they decided to resurrect or reactivate the government of Palestine, which has been dormant more or less since the 1948 armed insurrection by the Zionists. Not alone that, they ordered the creation of a Palestine army, and there are now drilling maybe 500,000 soldiers in that area of the world to lead these people back to their homes. With them, they have as their allies all the nations of what is termed the Bandung Conference group. That includes the Soviet Union and every Soviet Union satellite. It includes Red China. It includes every independent country in Asia and Africa, or 80% of the world's total population. 80% of the world's population, 4 out of 5.
As young as I remember, I've been trafficked through many elite places. I went from the Buckingham Palace to under the Getty Museum in Los Angeles, still under the custody of Child Protective Services, the child welfare system. And everybody is so worried about the elite, and we could give those names of Barack Obama, Joe Biden. We know about Michelle Obama, that's a man. We know about Too Short. We know about Akon and Steven Tyler, and we can give those names all day, and everybody is so worried about that. But what you should be worried about is the people that are in between, the people that go as low as your grave diggers. I was trafficked to people within my schools. I was trafficked in underground tunnels that link under your schools, through your cemeteries, under your amusement parks, through Universal Studios, and into Hollywood elite homes, all over the place, all over the world. And people don't understand that, and they can't fathom that, and they can't put that together. But if you think about the things that have come out lately, and there's 200 children missing, and there's 300 children missing, what Amber Alert did you receive? How many times do you receive an Amber Alert every year? And if you think about that, how many children are coming up in your face that have been tortured and abused like this? It exists and it's real, and people don't want to face it. It happens in your schools every day, as your grave diggers, your trash men. Everybody is involved. It is covered up by your local police department. It is underground tunnels. There's a whole world. It's a different way of life. There's every source of transportation. When I met Joe Biden, I was rushed through many celebrities. Underground, under the Getty Museum in Los Angeles, there are many tunnels. Again, there's a way of transportation. There's every single way of transportation under the ground. I was sold to Joe Biden. Multiple times. So I was sold for blowjobs. I was sold for sex. There is many people who trade to eat, beat, and rape children under the ground. I have many friends that I have lost, and I have many people that I've met that didn't make it.
Musical cult control. 432 Hz versus 440 Hz. What I am about to tell you might change the way you listen to music forever. Around 1885, the Music Commission of the Italian government declared that all instruments and orchestras should use a tuning fork that vibrated at 440 Hz, which was different from the original standard of 432 Hz used in France and throughout most of the world. In 1917, the American Federation of Musicians endorsed the Italians and began tuning in 440 Hz. Interestingly, in 1917, the United States officially entered World War I. Then in 1953, a worldwide agreement was signed between all nations. This frequency became the standard ISO 16 reference for tuning of all musical instruments. This tone standard is now accepted all over the world. There remains a mystery why this frequency was chosen in the first place. In fact, there are many people who disagree with this standard. They consider the 440 Hz middle A to be an abomination against nature. There are indeed clues that points to 432 Hz as a more natural frequency for the correct middle A, also known as Verdi's A, a pure tone of math fundamental to nature and is mathematically consistent with the patterns of the universe, vibrating with pi and the golden ratio. What is 440 Hz? 440 Hz is the unnatural standard tuning frequency removed from the symmetry of sacred vibrations and overtones. There is a theory that the change from 432 Hz to 440 Hz was dictated by Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels. Apparently, he used it to make people think and feel a certain manner and to make them a prisoner of their own consciousness. In a paper entitled Musical Cult Control, Dr. Leonard Horowitz writes, "The music industry features this imposed frequency that is herding populations into greater aggression, psychosocial agitation, and emotional distress, predisposing people to physical illness. Believe me, they know exactly what they are doing. They are successfully lowering the vibrations of not only the young generation, but the rest of us as well. If one should desire to know whether a kingdom is well governed, if its morals are good or bad, if one should desire to know whether a kingdom is well governed, if its morals are good or bad, the quality of its music will furnish the answer." Confucius. You just have to go out into the street and take a look around. What do you see? School kids, young adults on their way to work, and what do they all have in common? iPhones or MP3 players. Ingenious, isn't it? These destructive frequencies entertain the thoughts towards disruption, disharmony, and disunity. They also stimulate the controlling organ of the body and the brain into disharmonious resonance, which ultimately creates mind control. Some suspect that the Rockefeller Foundation had an interest in making sure that the United States adopted the 440 Hz standard as part of a war on consciousness, leading to musical cult control. If you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, then you would have a key to the universe. We have been left the method of counting and measurement, and the importance of dividing a unit by 12 seems to be the main rule given that has been adopted by humanity. Here are some of the ways that I found 12 to be an important number. 12 months of the year, 12 hours of a clock, 12 inches to the foot, 12 apostles of Christ, 12 constellations of the zodiac, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 knights of the round table, and there's much more. What happens when you divide today's music standard of A 440 Hz by 12? 440 Hz divided by 12 equals
36.66666666666667.
So what happens when you divide A 432 Hz, known as Verdi's A, an alternative tuning that is mathematically consistent with the universe, by 12? 432 Hz divided by 12 equals just 36. I heard it said perfectly that 440 Hz is pretending to be sacred geometry.
What I'm saying to you is you should give it to somebody that don't know any better, because that's a fugazi. Alright?
440 Hz is the closest one can come to the real thing, while still being an imposter. 432 Hz divided by 12 equals 36. 3 plus 6 equals 9. 3 plus 6 equals 9. 432 Hz equals 369. There are two ways of expressing the same thing. Next, let's look further into how the 432 Hz frequency is in time itself. Is our number system and method of timekeeping entirely based on 432 Hz, 9-base mathematics? How many seconds are in 12 hours? 43,200. That's 432. Divide or multiply a whole unit by 12. So 60 seconds times 12 equals 43,200 seconds. 36 times 12 equals 432. 36.666 times 12 equals 440. Interesting, isn't it? They are all related. They are perfect musical overtones of one another. Now check this out using vortex-based mathematics. 1 times 12 equals 12. 1 plus 2 equals 3. 2 times 12 equals 24. 2 plus 4 equals 6. 2 times 12 equals 24. 3 times 12 equals 36. 3 plus 6 equals 9. 4 times 12 equals 48. 4 plus 8 equals 12. 1 plus 2 equals 3. 5 times 12 equals 60. 6 plus 0 equals 6. 6 times 12 equals 72. 7 plus 2 equals 9. Now if you keep on going, you'll notice that our number system is all 3, 6, and 9, repeating forever. The numerical coincidences are too compelling. All over the world and for thousands of years, humanity has received certain number sequences. 108, 144, 360, 369, 432, 1080. But why? What is it about these numbers that jars something so deep within us that we incorporate them into our myths and spiritual beliefs? The answer could be in frequency harmonics. We measure sound frequencies and vibration cycles per second, and the numbers listed above, when played as frequencies, just happen to mirror the exact harmonic patterns found in nature. Music based on 432 Hz transmits beneficial healing energy because it is a pure tone of math fundamental to nature. Classical music such as Beethoven was created using 432 Hz, and research shows that this type of music helps plants grow faster and healthier. 432 Hz is a harmonic of light frequency. It speaks and resonates directly with our cells. All cells communicate with each other via infrared light. So imagine, when they receive music in 432 Hz, they are in joy. The conscious mind may not be aware of this, but most of what goes on in our bodies is subconscious. Sound in the air may be defined as the transfer of periodic movements between adjacent colliding atoms or molecules. Research says that music tuned from this frequency is easier to listen to, brighter, clearer, and contains more inherent dynamic range. As a result, music with this tuning does not need to be played at higher volumes, and this reduces the risk of hearing damage. Cosmic harmonious frequencies related to the 432 Hz frequency and its importance in the creation of physical reality from light and sound. Is it possible that over the course of thousands of years, we have somehow been guided in the process of creating this new form of communication? And if so, what type of information will we learn from it that could not be expressed in any other way? The underlying primary psychic reality is so inconceivably complex that it can be grasped only at the farthest reach of intuition, and then but very dimly. That is why it needs symbols. This is the biggest mystery. This universal truth was not available to the people of this planetary system. It is now finally being received on this planet by deep seekers of the truth and ready to receive it. Throughout history, numerous clues and hints regarding geometry and frequency have been staring at us, calling to us, and waiting for us to put them into place like pieces of a giant jigsaw puzzle. Here at the dawn of a new age, this sonic geometric puzzle is finally nearing completion, revealing the building block pieces of a giant jigsaw puzzle. Here at the dawn of a new age, this sonic geometric puzzle is finally nearing completion, revealing the building blocks of a language based on energy, frequency, and form. Now, how do we tell the rest of the world that we need to reset the international concert pitch back to A432 Hz? Many people might say that this is nothing and barely noticeable, but why would they go through so much trouble to have this frequency change worldwide when some of the greatest classical music was created using 432 Hz? If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
Thanks for watching. We're living in a time where the Khazarian mafia is pulling the strings behind the scenes, controlling the elite and politicians. It's time to wake up and take back our country from this shadowy grip. We can't sit idly by while crime runs rampant and our freedoms are stripped away. Join me in this fight for justice and accountability. Together, we can expose the truth and reclaim our power. If you believe in this cause, like and subscribe. Let's make our voices heard.